The final item of business this evening is a members' business debate on motion 18544 in the name of Christine Graham on Organ Donation Week 22nd to the 28th September 2025. The debate will be concluded without any questions being put. I'd invite members wishing to participate to press the request to speak buttons, and I call on Christine Graham to open the debate. Around 7 minutes. Ms Graham.
Thank you very much, Deputy Presiding Officer. I thank all members who signed the motion to allow this to proceed to debate, those manning the exhibition this week, those attending in the public gallery, including members of the transplant team, health professionals, and in particular Audrey Cameron, a donor's mother, about which I will say more later. I also thank those who have remained in the chamber after a very, very long week with late sittings. Now, my contribution extends only to transplants following a death. Now, talking about death is always a difficult topic in any circumstance, one might say grisly, and one which we in the Western world prefer to avoid. But one death can save a life or allow a better life to someone else, and sometimes to many strangers. Let me first set out the legislative background. For short, it might be called deemed authorisation or presumed consent to donating your organs. The Human Tissue Authorisation Scotland Act 2019 was passed here in July 2019. This provides for a deemed authorisation or opt-out system of organs for donation for transplantation. It applies to most adults aged 16 and over, resident in Scotland, but it will not apply to everyone. There are exemptions. Adults without capacity to understand the law, adults who have lived in Scotland for fewer than 12 months before their death, and children under the age of 16. If a person in one of these groups dies in a way that means they could donate, then their closest family member will be asked whether they wish to authorise donation. Otherwise, if you die in circumstances where you could become a donor and have not recorded a donation decision, either to agree or reject, it will be assumed you're willing to donate your organs for transplantation. Even then, your family will always be asked about your latest views on donation to ensure it would not proceed if this was against your wishes. I can, certainly.
John Mason.
I thank the member for giving way. Does she think that most of the public understand that? Because I have to say I was a bit confused about it until I spoke to the folk today.
Christine Graham.
Well, thank you very much, friends. That's partly the reason for this debate and to highlight it. This is where understandable difficulties arise. Specialist nurses, without delay for obvious reasons, must raise the issue of consent to use some of the deceased organs in the most distressful of circumstances. Having registered your wishes one way or the other makes that discussion much easier. So though there is presumed consent, it's still better to also register. Let me also stress that only 1% of the population who die can actually be considered to become an organ donor. Only those who are in intensive care and ventilated. So it's a very niche set of circumstances. That specialist nurse I referred to is one of a team of 23 based in intensive care units across Scotland. They support consultants and nurses having end-of-life discussions with families. They cover all aspects of the donation process, from the initial referral from the ICU team, building a patient's profile, bloods, ECG, chest x-ray, medical notes, organ matching, offering and placement, organising theatre and National Organ Retrieval Service team to arrive at the donor hospital. Time, of course, is always of the essence. They coordinate the retrieval operation to the very end, where they perform last offices with donors and ensure organs are safely dispatched to their recipients. They also provide a bereavement follow-up service for donors' families. Currently, there are around 600 people waiting for an organ transplant in Scotland at any one time. Patients in urgent need of life-saving or life-enhancing organs, with the majority waiting for a kidney transplant. And one donor can save up to 9 lives. But nothing illustrates better the significance of organ transplant than an example. Audrey Cameron, she's here today, her son James Borland died in February 2024 at the young age of 25. She chose to donate James's organs as she felt that this was fitting for him as a kind and gentle young man. James went on to donate his heart, his lungs, and both kidneys, saving the lives of 4 people. Becoming an organ donor has given his family so much comfort amongst their grief. James' story has not ended, and he has changed so many people's lives. He left behind his young son, who one day will know how brave his daddy was and how he's a true hero to so many. Audrey now works closely with the specialist nurse in organ donation team, promoting and sharing her passion for organ donation, and I thank her for this permission to make public her experience, and I thank all others who in similar circumstances have done it. I think nothing can illustrate more how important this is than that example. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms Graham. We now move to the open debate. I call for Stephen Kerr to be followed by Jackie DeBar. Around 4 minutes, Mr Kerr.
Well, congratulations to Christine Graham for bringing the motion to Parliament. I kind of regret it's on a Thursday evening. It deserves a more prominent place in our scheduling, but nevertheless, it is a highly appropriate debate. And I think everything that needed to be said, frankly, was said in the story of James, because Christine Graham is right. A hero indeed. So I'm very pleased to be able to speak in support of this motion, which rightly recognises Organ Donation Week as a vital opportunity to highlight the life-saving power of organ and tissue donation. And I agree with John Mason, who's not in his place now, but he's absolutely right. I think there's a lot of misunderstanding about the current situation in Scotland in relation to the opt-in, opt-out arrangements. The motion reminds us of a striking and sobering truth that in 2024-25, there were only 274 people in Scotland who benefited from a transplant, compared with 390 the year before. And that downward trend is noteworthy. It's a concern, particularly when there are nearly 8,000 people across the United Kingdom, including many here in Scotland, who continue to wait for a transplant that may be the difference between life and death. Now, if I may just mention the opt-out system again. It was introduced in 2021 and has been a step forward. But as the motion makes clear, and as Christine Graham made so clear in her speech, it does rely on the agreement of families. And too often transplants don't proceed because loved ones have never had a conversation. And that's why I fully support the Scottish Government's Don't Leave Your Loved Ones in Doubt campaign. It's so important, and it's why we should use this debate and every opportunity we have as elected members of the Scottish Parliament to encourage people to register their wishes and to speak openly with their families. Now, I am one of the people that John Mason referred to. He identified himself in the same. And when I first learned about this, because of this week and because of the debate that Christine Graham has brought to the Chamber, and because I decided I wanted to participate in it, I didn't realise I should register. I didn't realise I should go to that website and make it clear what my desire was in the event of my own death. And so I'm very grateful for the debate for that reason. I also communicated that fact to my family, to my wife, and to our children, so that they would know exactly what it is that I would desire. If any part of me can be useful to anyone else, then that is what I would want. So we need to make it clear, but we also need to communicate it clearly. Now, one of the bits of the motion that particularly intrigued me was the bit that talks about the reported role of faith leaders in confirming there are no religious barriers to donation and clearing up myths. And I want to talk about that from a very personal point of view. Something I haven't done very much in the last 4.5 years is to speak about things from my perspective as a Christian and as a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. I want to take this opportunity to stress that organ donation is not only compatible with my faith, but it is, I believe, one of the most selfless acts of love that a human being can perform. In my faith, the body is sacred, but so too is the command to love one another. For me, the act of donation is a profound way of following the example of Jesus Christ, whose life and sacrifice were the ultimate expressions of self-giving love. The scriptures teach that Jesus said, "Greater love hath no man than this, that a man lay down his life for his friends." Now, organ donation allows us, in a small but significant way, to reflect that same love by giving the gift of life to others even after our own journey in mortality has ended. And that's why I welcome the emphasis in the motion on the role of faith leaders, because across Scotland, religious communities have affirmed there are no barriers of belief to donation. And this clears away damaging myths, allows people of faith to see organ donation for what it is, a gift of compassion rooted in love and service. I also welcome the call to engage young people using modern tools, such as the QR codes that are mentioned in colleges and universities, to spark awareness. I mean, if we needed to be sparked into awareness, then I'm sure that applies to a wide range of people across all the demographics, but we need to be made aware of how we can make our desires known. Presiding Officer, this is not about compulsion, it's not about state control, it's about responsibility, it's about family dialogue and choosing to give, and therefore I strongly support the motion and encourage all eligible Scots to register and to share their wishes and to help save lives.
Thank you, Mr Kerr. I now call Jackie Dunbar to be followed by Paul Sweeney, around 4 minutes. Ms Dunbar.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. And can I congratulate my colleague Christine Graham for securing this evening's debate on Organ Donation Week. And can I thank her for not only her motion, but for her lack of fear in broaching subjects like this. Difficult subjects that need to be heard, but so many times to do so is to have difficult discussions. So thank you, Christine. Most of us are aware of the advances in medical science and technology and the literally life-saving impact they and the donors have had on folk who would otherwise not survive. If my understanding is correct, and I'll probably get told if it's not, the first transplant took place in the year I was born, 1967, and the technological leaps forward in the decades since then are astounding. But those advances will count for very little in terms of improving health if our medical professionals can't find donors in the first instance. Today's debate is in the middle of Organ Donation Week, designed to raise awareness of organ donation and the incredible role it plays in changing folks' lives forever. It is a bittersweet moment when someone receives a transplant from an organ donor, as everyone is very aware of the tragic death that has led to this much-needed donation. The raw numbers have always been small in comparison to our population, a few hundred transplants a year, but the figures highlighted by Christine Graham's motion are deeply concerning. The numbers on the register itself have continued to grow over time, but there is an issue with those making that positive decision to be on the register, communicating their wishes to their loved ones. Another difficult discussion, but an important one. These are difficult and sensitive discussions for anyone. It is a bit, well, gruesome for some folk to talk to their next of kin, who often don't want to listen, about what happens to their kidneys or liver after they've passed. But it's because death is fundamental to the donor process that we need to have those chats now, before it's too late, and ensure our wishes are known. Presiding Officer, as Christine Graham's already said, only 1% of donor organs are fit for transplant. In 99% of cases, despite the goodwill and good wishes of those on the register, for a variety of medical reasons, that generosity cannot be taken up. The circumstances of death that present the opportunity for donation and transplant are incredibly specific, and it means that our health professionals need to make the best possible use of every chance they get to help another. because those chances are few and far between. If we can increase the number of chances our NHS professionals have, we can increase the chances of healthy lives for so many, many more people across our country. So to anyone watching at home, please make sure your family and next of kin know your wishes. In closing, Presiding Officer, I've been made aware of an art installation in recognition of organ donors. It has been unveiled very recently at Aberdeen Royal Infirmary. It was created by relatives, and Sheila Swanson, the artist, was commissioned to work with the relatives of donors, along with young folk across the North East secondary schools, to create glass pebbles. These have been placed on the walls in the foyer of ARI's emergency department, reaching up towards the Sandpiper Sanctuary. It commemorates the ripples of organ donation, and it is hoped it is a conversation starter. So if you see the ripples of organ donation as you're walking in the ARI, remember to have that discussion with your loved ones and tell them of your wishes. Thank you, Presiding Officer.
Thank you, Ms Dunbar. Just a gentle reminder to those in the public gallery, there should be no participation, and tempting though it is, that also includes applause. We now come to the final speaker in the open debate, Paul Sweeney, around 4 minutes. Mr Sweeney.
Thank you, Deputy Presiding Officer, and I would like to also extend my thanks and appreciation to the member for Midlothian, South Creedale and Lauderdale, Christine Graham, for presenting before the Parliament a motion that I know will be close to the heart of many people across this chamber and throughout Scotland. Organ Donation Week is an important moment in the year for us to remember those lives saved by the incredibly generous donation of others, whilst also hopefully stirring us up to greater action so that we can live in a Scotland where everyone who needs a donated organ can receive one. Organ donation, as has been mentioned by others across the chamber, including Mr Kerr, is the ultimate act of kindness and selfless commitment to the well-being of others, a recognition that when our life has reached its end, others can be given the gift of life and vitality. An ending that has become a beginning for and a moment of death then becomes in a way an act of love and a continuation of life or an improvement of life. And it is these acts of giving and receiving that we build a society based on trust and recognition, one where we care for the stranger and where even at the end of our life we can leave with a generous spirit and a hand open to friendship, even to someone we've never met. Like many in this Parliament, I was a registered organ donor under the old system, and I'm proud that this Parliament created an opt-out system in 2021 after the passing of the Human Tissue Authorisation Scotland Act of 2019. This monumental Act of Parliament still retained choice for those who wish, for whatever reason, to opt out of the system, but the more generous and giving option is now the default option. This was a profound moment of progress, which I think we should all be proud about. It built a sense of solidarity and community. That being said, while Scotland should be proud of this opt-out system, the figures from Kidney Research Scotland do paint a worrying picture of the state of organ donation in Scotland. While 500 people are currently waiting for transplants in Scotland, the numbers registering each year on the organ donor register have reduced dramatically each year from 155,479 in 2021 to just 7,859. So this is a worrying development, and by not registering on the organ donor register, it can create a lack of clarity for family regarding their loved one's final wishes. This can cause delays in organ retrieval, which means that organs which could have been saved to enhance or preserve life are no longer able to be used, often very urgently in surgery. And I do urge everyone listening to make sure that they are on that organ donor register so that family medical professionals can have no doubt about your wishes should you wish to donate your organs. And I have to say that I wasn't fully appreciative of that requirement to clarify, and indeed I've just done so in the last 5 minutes. So it doesn't take very long at all, just did that there on the website. So, oh sorry, yes, happy to
Christine Graham.
I'm ashamed to say I too didn't realise. I have to carry the old card, but I didn't know I had to register. I just thought, well, we've got presumed consent, all is well.
Paul Sweeney.
And I think perhaps those figures that I mentioned maybe reflect a bit of complacency that once the law changed, maybe people thought, well, it's a done deal, unless I'm specifically motivated to rule myself out. But actually understanding which organs or tissue you wish to donate and make that clear would avoid any ambiguity in a very traumatic situation if you're dealing with the death of a loved one. So it'd be good just to have that addressed. So I would encourage members of the public and colleagues to do so. I also think it's important to know I recently went to visit Glasgow University's anatomy school, and they raised similar concerns about the drop in people donating their bodies to medical research. The 5 universities in Scotland which teach medicine are in desperate need of people willing to donate their bodies for research. And I think this is also an option that people might want to give consideration to. It is still an opt-in system and a very generous one at that. So it's something else perhaps to consider this week. Presiding officer, I think we do need to use Organ Donation Week as a moment to recognise that much more work is needed if we want to see organ donation service the people of Scotland as much as it can. We can no longer just rest on our laurels. We need to get people proactively registering and to reduce the stigma and silence, but actually talking more about the end of life. I think we do that a lot more in Scotland. We used to about hospice care, the end of life palliative care, and people should be happy to talk about this with their friends and family about what they want to do at the end of life and if they wish to donate their organs. And I'd just like to again reiterate my thanks to the member for introducing this motion, and I hope that today will prove to be the start of a new Scotland-wide conversation on this vitally important topic, and it's why I'm very happy to support the motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr Sweeney. I now invite Jenny Minto to respond to the debate. Minister, around 7 minutes, please.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. I welcome the opportunity for this debate, and I too would like to thank members for their contributions, and in particular Christine Graham for tabling the motion. Organ and Tissue Donation Week is crucial for raising awareness of the life-saving and life-changing opportunities provided by organ and tissue donation. The debate today has made an important contribution. I'd also like to pass on my love and my thank you to Audrey Cameron for the decision that she and her family made with her, as Christine Graham described, kind and gentle man, James Borland. I think he was also inspiring. So thank you so much for that. Stephen Kerr talked about comfort and selfless acts. And I thank you, Stephen Kerr, for coming to this chamber and being so personal in your views. I think that can only help ensure that we increase numbers because, as Paul Sweeney said, it's that generous spirit, which I think you showed this evening, that generous spirit that we need to increase and ensure that as many people get an opportunity of a better life and life as well. Paul Sweeney also talked about the importance, as did others, about speaking about end-of-life care. And I was very pleased to launch the Palliative Care for All framework about 10 days ago, and the importance of having these conversations. During my time as Minister, I've met people who have donated organs, the families of those who have sadly died, but who took the decision to donate their organs, and those who have received transplants and whose lives have been transformed. I've also observed a live kidney transplant operation at the Royal Infirmary of Edinburgh, and I would like to start by paying a huge tribute to all of those who've donated organs, all the clinicians and other NH staff across Scotland who are involved in donation and transplantation. During this year's Organ and Tissue Donation Week, the Scottish Government marketing campaign is focused on the key message: don't leave your loved ones in doubt. This national campaign is designed to encourage people aged 16 and over to record their donation decision on the NHS Organ Donor Register and to tell their loved ones about their decision. I also think the artwork that Jackie Dunbar described is hugely important as well, because it's bringing perhaps a difficult conversation through art sometimes is made easier. So I commend the work of Sheila Swanson and Aberdeen Royal Infirmary. Scotland has a good record in terms of numbers of people registering their decision in the Organ Donor Register, which I'm very pleased about, but we have to do more. Working with stakeholders and using a variety of social media platforms, video on demand and digital and radio platforms, we will be emphasising the message that if family and friends know about your donation decision in advance, then it will make it easier for them to ensure it is honoured. And I would like to thank Erin and Bushra for the conversation that I had earlier today at their stand, speaking specifically about this, but also our conversation around death and the importance of sharing our wishes with our loved ones.
Christine Graham.
I'm very grateful for publicity, but here we are in this chamber, and the members of Parliament sitting in here didn't know. It's preferable to register one way or the other. So even though there's a campaign, it's not even getting through. I know we're not maybe the brightest of the bright sometimes, but it's not getting through to us. So how do we step it up so that it becomes common knowledge now that please register as well one way or the other, just to help?
Minister.
Yeah, I thank Christine Graham for her intervention, and it is a very important one. And it was actually around that my conversation at lunchtime was about the importance about how can we make this more clear. It's when we're applying for certain things like driving licences, or can we extend that out? Can we ensure that as many people as possible know? So I've taken that on board. I've listened to that conversation, and I will be discussing it with officials after this debate. I think I would like to draw to attention 3 key areas of the Scottish Government work that we do to support organ and tissue donation. First, we're working with the NHSBT in order to address concerns about a decline in the pool of eligible donors, as Christine Graham just mentioned. And indeed, that is not just in Scotland, it's also in the UK and internationally. There is also a decline in family authorisation rates and also changes in the perception of the NHS post-pandemic, with the aim of seeking to explore how opportunities can be maximised to increase numbers of organ donations. We created the Organ Donation Joint Working Group, and that has taken advice from international experts, and I'm looking forward to receiving the group report in due course. And clearly the inputs from tonight's debate will also be part of my thought process and evidence gathering. We're aware that some families find the donation process difficult, and I welcome that the NHSBT, as part of this work, will review the donor family authorisation form to seek to improve the experience of donor families and specialist nurses and help to reduce the length of the donation process. And I'm also looking forward to receiving the next year's 5-year evaluation of the opt-out system, which was introduced in 2021, and I'm sure there will be more learning from that. Earlier this year, we worked to promote living kidney donation as an excellent option for those facing the need of transplantation. This work is supported by the Renal Education and Choices at Home, or REACH programme, which is being funded by the Scottish Government. REACH, which was established in late 2020, is focused on timely education, a key component of the treatment pathway choice for all patients. The network of REACH nurse specialists in Scotland provide home visits to people with end-stage kidney disease and their key family members to give them more information on living kidney donation. This approach drives improvement in education and increases uptake of patients accessing preemptive living donor kidney transplantation. And meeting a family that has benefited from this was one memory that will never leave me. Third, I would like to thank Kidney Research UK, which the Scottish Government grant funds to increase awareness of living kidney donation amongst minority groups in Scotland, which might otherwise face challenges in equitable access to transplantation. The work of our peer educators, whom I met here in Parliament, provide a vital service, informing, educating and helping people make choices about organ donation. In conclusion, I would like to thank members again for their support and contributions, and I would once more urge people across Scotland to both record their donation decision on the Organ Donors Register and discuss their decision with their family and friends. Thanks.
Thank you, Minister. That concludes the debate, and I close this meeting of Parliament.